my mission president, he would always say, like, what are you willing to do for the 1%, right?
Huh.
What are you willing to do? Like 99% grind for the 1% find is what he'd always say. That was his phrase, 99% grind for the 1% find. Like I think about, all right, what is that 1% and how am I going to get to that? And so I think that's like the biggest thing that keeps me going is like, one, remembering why I'm doing this, and two, remembering that I have to go through that 99% to find that 1% of success.
Everybody, welcome back to the Own Your Education podcast. Today, I get to talk with Austin Oldroyd. And Austin, thanks for taking the time out of your day to come here. You said you were doing calculus homework before we even started.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I mean, working with you was a blast, and so I'm always down to have a chat with you, man.
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited.
So before we kind of like get rolling, tell me a little bit about where you're from, what you're doing right now, because I know we got multiple things going on, and then tell me about where you've been working recently in Texas.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Austin, Texas. Hook 'em horns, let's go. Moved out to Utah, going to school at BYU currently.
Cool.
Now I'm working at a tech company called Athelis. We're in like kind of the medical revenue cycle management sphere. Been working there since June. So over the summer, and then now back into the swing of things with school and working full time. It's a busy life, but it's a fun one. Definitely enjoy it. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've got going on right now.
Yeah. So in the business world, I love to call that the double.
Uh-huh.
When you're doing school and work.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. How has it been? Are you hanging in there? And like, what's been the key to being able to do both at the same time?
Yeah. I am hanging in there.
Good.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I definitely think it was nice to work over the summer without going to school first. And then adding school on top of work. Did like my whole ramping period before school even started. So got to like get more experience with that. I would say the way I balance it is just making sure I am very intentional with my time. When I'm at work, like I'm focused on work, and then as soon as work is over, like I'm focused on school, right? And I make sure that when I'm at home, instead of, before when I was just in school, I'd be like goofing off, like, if my friends were like, hey, let's go hang out. It's like, okay, yeah, for sure. I'll just do school later. But because I have more structure and I have to be more on top of things, I get home from work and it's, all right, put on a different hat, right? And so just being intentional with my time is what has been helping me. It's hard sometimes trying to find the balance, especially with school, work, social life, right? Still have roommates, still have friends that all want to hang out, do stuff. But, just making sure that I know why I'm doing it and is what keeps me on the right path. So
what an awesome answer. Being intentional with your time. So when I was in school, a little about me, I was a student athlete. So I was running track at UVU, doing the hurdles, but it was kind of the same process where being a student athlete, it's almost like a part-time job on top of your school. But yeah, you have, your warm up, and then you have your actual practice, and then you have lifting, and then you have your cool down, then you have your recovery, and you have all these things. And then you have school and tests and social and sleep and food, and it really adds up. And so when you talk about being intentional with your time, what a powerful statement. I had a mentor, Peter Vidmar, who's like the mission president, that's a missionary, that when he found out I was going to do track in college, he was so excited because he was an athlete himself. He was actually an Olympian. But when he found out I was doing track, he said, the harder you work on the track, the harder you're going to work in school. And he said that you can't just section off discipline in your life. Like if you're disciplined in one area, it carries over into everything else. And so I've kind of seen that like even with work and other things I'm doing outside. If I can crush it at work, then I'm going to do really well in any type of workouts I'm doing outside of work, and vice versa. And so same thing with you with school, work, social, being intentional, that just really resonates with me.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. The times where, like the days where it's like, oh man, do I even want to go into work today? Oh man, do I even want to go to school? It's not as productive all across the board. But the days that are like, all right, go in, crush the morning, crush the afternoon, then come home, it's like, I'm ready to crush school or whatever I'm doing. So I definitely see that. It's hard to endure, like to keep going. You can do it one day, you can do it 2 days, but like it takes a different type of person to be able to do it day in and day out. And I'm trying to get there. I'm new at it, but I'm trying to get there.
Dude, you're doing a good job. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So been at Athelus for 4 months now?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about why you kind of chose to transition into tech sales, because you've gotten in pretty early. And honestly, there's been probably some huge benefits from that. Like we can get into the growth side in just a second, which is cool.
Yeah.
But what caused you to just go down that thought track of, dude, I'm going to go work for a tech company. I'm going to do sales and do school?
Yeah. I will say 6 months ago, wasn't thinking about it. I think the biggest thing, so a year ago, got home from serving a mission, and my cousin, you know him, Ian, he got into tech sales around that time. And so my dad was talking to his dad and whatnot. And my dad was like, hey, Austin, like, you got to get into this. Like, you got to try it out, see what happens. Right. And so fall rolls around. I'm like, okay, yeah, like maybe I'll get into it. But I was still, at the time I was wanting to be like a physical therapist. Like that was like my goal. But then like fall rolls around, winter rolls around. I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I still want to do it, whatever. My dad's like, hey, like hit up your cousin, get into tech sales. So then found you through Ian. I was like, hey, like, let's try it out. Let's see what the big deal is. And so did Sales Dojo, got a job at Athelus, and like, I love it. It's like changed my whole like outlook, what I want to do with my life. Didn't think a year ago, if you would have told me I would be in tech sales, I would have been like, what is tech sales first? And then I'd be like, no way. Right. But I think the biggest thing was I saw like the growth potential. Like where I was like, okay, if I were to stay in the track I was, like, okay, I'd be going to school for 3 more years. Then I'd have 3 years after that of schooling, have a lot of student debt, right? And then I'm like, is that what I want for my next like 5 to 10 years?
Yeah.
Got into tech and like saw the benefits of not only like the personal growth that I get. I love talking to people. Like that was like my favorite thing. So being able to talk on the phone all day with different people, it's tough, but it's I love it, right? And so I think like seeing where I can be now, like you said, I got into it early. Still in school, still got a few years left, but I think, you know, seeing that potential is what like not only made me think about getting into it, but like wanting to stay into it as well.
Man, that's awesome. And you talk about like looking into the future, about potential. I think making decisions based off of potential, I think there's some risk involved, but I think that's where things start to get exciting.
Yeah.
And you start to see progress and whatnot. And so being able to work for a tech company, you want to talk about potential, you get into a good company, crazy things start to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's fun. Athelus is, I guess you could technically still call it a startup. It's been around for a few years now. But it's fun. Every week there's new updates on the product. There's new things coming out, and it's new and exciting, and it's fun to hit the ground running with it and try to make a difference in people's lives. So
that's awesome. So honestly, it wasn't even on the radar.
Yep.
We're like, what is tech sales? I'm not even a software guy. Like, what hit the switch where you're like, you know what, I am going to try it? Because I feel like I have a similar experience. Like, I never thought I was actually going to be in sales. Thought I'd do something totally different. But, you know, for you, what was the switch that just, you know, I'm gonna try?
I think it was, you know, I knew that I wanted to do something where I could make a difference in people's lives. And I knew that I didn't know exactly how, right? Like I said, I had a track. I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a physical therapist. I think I probably changed my mind about what I wanted to do like every 6 months, right? And so I think like hearing about different people's experience in tech, I think that was like the switch. Was like, oh, like I can still make a difference in people's lives. I can talk to different people every single day. I can grow on myself. And it was like, hey, why not? Like you said, right? Something new has a risk. I was like, I'm willing to take the risk, see what happens, right? And so I think that was the flip for me was like, hey, like when else? Like why not? Was pretty much my mindset going into it was like, why not do this? See what happens. So that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, I feel really similar. I think we have very similar stories of getting in. My dad was also someone who kind of pointed me in the direction, is because he worked at a tech company and he said, Jerry, you should go work for one of these high growth Silicon Slopes companies. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But oh man, what was I going to say? Oh, I totally forgot. What did you just say?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Yes, that was my thought track, was when I was thinking about doing it, it's kind of a leap of faith because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have any sales background, similar to yourself. But I told myself, worst case scenario, I go work there, say 6 months. I learn some new skills. I make some good money. And then I go do something else.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a win-win for sure.
Exactly, right? Yeah. No, I feel the same way. Like I was like looking at where I was, I'm like, hey, I could go work here. Like you said, like 6 months. If I decide I don't like it, just go right back to what I was doing before. And that wouldn't set me back. Like anyway. So it's like, why not try it out? See what happens.
Why not, man?
Yeah.
So now that you're in, what has it been like? Has it been different than what you expected? And then how have you seen yourself start to kind of grow as you've been working in the role?
Yeah. It definitely is different than I expected. I would say it's better than I expected, first off, which is always good, right? I think the biggest thing, the growth, I love learning from different people, different peers, right? And so going into, first of all, like a new experience being in sales, being in tech sales, whatever it may be, just like going in from day one, like it was great being in a culture where everybody wanted you to succeed, because it wasn't like, oh, me versus you. It's like, hey, we're working for the same team. We all have the same goal. And so let's build each other up. And so I think having that culture of like, hey, like, let's see what we can do to make sure that we're all succeeding, not only helps me want other people to succeed even more when new people are hired, whatever it may be, when people, have their ups and downs. But I think, turning outward is what the biggest growth I've had is like, I think a lot of times people have like these negative connotations of like, oh, maybe salespeople are like always inward, always looking at themselves, but have not once seen that within my company, within anybody. It's just like, hey, we're all here to grow and we're all here to succeed. And so like, let's do that together rather than I'm just going to keep all the secrets to myself.
Dude,
so
it is so cool that you say that, because I had this very similar perception, and I also had a very similar experience at the tech company I worked at. Was I felt so much of my growth came through managers and mentors, but also just teammates, other members of the team or SDRs that, we started to work together. We started to push each other in healthy ways that really elevated everybody in the group. I had a friend, Mitch Hess, shout out to Mitch, freaking love Mitch. We and him would go back and forth a lot of months on like trying to be the top performer. And he would tell me, he's like, dude, I want to beat you so bad, but you better be right behind me.
Yeah.
And I love that mentality where Mitch wasn't like, taking away from me and making me look bad, but he's more like raising me up, but still wanting to beat me out for that number one slot. And I think that's such a cool, healthy mindset. And it's awesome that the Othello's team has that same type of perspective.
Yeah, we do competitions all the time. And it's always fun, like coming down to like the last wire. We did a competition between like last Friday or something, and it like came down to a tiebreaker of like who had the most call time, and my coworker beat me by 3 minutes. And it was so funny because I was on the last call, and like my manager and like all the rest of the SDR team was like huddled around like his computer to see what the talk time was. And so it was fun. It was fun. It's like I lost by 3 minutes, but it was all, I mean, it was all fun and games, right? So like I was happy that, you know, we could push each other. And all my coworkers are able to do that. So it's just like fun things like that where like you were saying, like it's not like he won and then he just like put me down and was like, oh yeah, like Austin stinks or whatever. It's like, hey, no, like you dap each other up. You're like, hey, we both did great. Like whatever happens, like we both did super good this morning, right? Whatever it is. So I think like what you were saying, like building each other up is much needed, especially being new, right? And so that's what I've loved. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Well, there are days when sometimes you need to be built up. Like
Yep.
you're getting wrecked.
Yep.
It's tough. But there's something so special, you know, if you get just hammered on the phone or maybe someone says something just really shuts you down. Yep. It is such a great feeling to just be able to look at your teammates and just kind of crack up for a second and laugh it off and then like, I can keep going.
No, yeah. Every day, all sitting next to each other and like, you'll get off a call, you like turn to your coworkers and you're like, what the heck even just happened on that call? This person, or you're like, this person just said this, like, what the heck? Whatever it is. And so, but yeah, having those ups and downs, like it's good. It's nice to have people to just to laugh with. So.
And I think culture is such a big element when looking at a company, but along with culture, looking at like and projecting growth, kind of like what we were saying. And so we were talking before the podcast, but you've been there 4 months and somehow you're now one of the most senior SDRs. Am I right?
Yeah, I've been there. There's only, so my onboarding group, there was like 4 or 5 of us. But as far as like SDRs go, there's only one person that's been there longer at the company than me. So yeah, it's crazy to think about because like when I got there were people that had been there for like around a year. They promoted, whatever, things shifted around. And now it's like, there's people that have been there for a month. There's people that have been there for 2 months. And then it's like 4 months. You've been there the longest. So it's definitely interesting. So there's a lot of growth that comes with that as well. So
dude, I think that is so exciting about the industry because you always have something that you can work towards and progress towards. We get a lot of people coming to take the course that have been in the workforce for a couple of years. And they've hit this ceiling. Mm-hmm. They're like, I've kind of capped out my career growth and the harder I work, I don't make any more money. Mm-hmm. I'm just stuck. But when you can get into a tech company on the sales side, you're always having something you can reach for, push for, and move up with. And I think it's just one of the most motivating factors at the end of the day. Yeah. So it's cool that you've kind of been able to experience that. But what is the next move? Like, are you on a track for an AE? Is that something you want to be, or what's it looking like?
Yeah, I mean, eventually. I still feel like I've been at this company for like 2 weeks, right? But yeah, I think that's something that I definitely would want. I would love to continue to grow within like Athelis. They have like a pretty planned out track that you can be on. Like, hey, as long as you hit this, like it's pretty well defined. Like this, if you hit these numbers, if you hit this, like then you'll be an AE. And like that's I mean, I'd love to be an AE. I'd love to kind of grow within Athelis because I love the product. I love what we do. I love the culture. We're growing. It's awesome. But yeah, I think AE, not sure when that's going to be. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But that all depends on, you know, all the hard work that goes into it. So
I love that. Well, one of the cool parts about working for a tech company, I think, as well, is like, yeah, you have an awesome team, but you also have like leaders that you get to be around. How has it been working with your leaders in Athelis? And like, has there been someone in particular that you felt like has been a really cool mentor for you and someone that you've really been able to learn from?
Yeah, I would definitely say that as far as like my SDR manager, shout out Gavin, he is a team player, right? So he started at Athelis as an SDR, moved his way up to an AE, now is an SDR manager. Yeah. And so like he's a wizard when it comes to things. So he's always wanting to do like always willing to help out in any way, right? He's not the type that'll like be breathing down your neck, but he's the type that's like, hey, like, let's go do a call blitz. Like, let's go hop in a room, let's make some dials, and like, let's see how we can grow together. I think learning from him and the different techniques that he uses, because he, like I said, like he's been working at Athellis for over a year. I don't know if it's over like close to 2 years. So he knows the product in and out, right? And so I think him, as well as like a lot of my coworkers that have been there for like a long time, still able to work with a lot of them. And like even from day one, like just be making dials and they'd be coming over. I'd ask them tons of questions. And so like not even just like managers, but just peers as well. Our head of sales is very involved with what we do. And so he sits across the way from me. And anytime I'm like, hey, I have a question about this, he's always willing. He's like, hey, put some time on my calendar. Like, let's meet, let's talk. And so I think everybody, any AE you can go to and put some time on their calendar and they're willing to talk with you. And so like, I wouldn't even say it's like one particular person, but it's like everybody is a mentor to each other. And even like other SDRs, like whatever it is, everybody's a mentor and nobody is above anybody else when it comes to like, oh, I can't ask this person for advice, or like, oh, I can't go to this person when I'm struggling. It's like, hey, like you can go to anybody and everybody and we will all help you. So that's I love it. It's there's nothing quite like it. So
man, what an awesome culture to be a part of. Seriously, you don't get that at every single company where your VP is saying, hey, just throw some time on my calendar.
Yeah.
Let's chat it up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice. It's nice being in a smaller office to be able to like bump knees, bump elbows with all these different people who have varying degrees of sales experience. And so it's really great to be able to learn from them.
Man, dude, one of the things I've learned both coming from Divvy and then now with Dojo is there's a lot of amazing sales leaders out there and they have such a burden of like managing the whole sales team and hitting their numbers and projections and all those things that they want to give back more. Like maybe someone can do some fact check on this, but I feel like there's a lot of sales leaders that want to give back to people that are up and coming. A lot of times they just don't have the opportunity in their role as VP all the time. And so I have personally seen, like when I was at Divvy, I threw time on my VP's sales calendar. I threw time on our co-founders' calendar just to meet and take them to lunch. And they were always willing. Maybe they pushed me out like 2 weeks because they're so busy, but they always made time to teach me if I was proactive enough to just go and ask. And so it sounds like you've even had some of those opportunities already that you've been able to take advantage of.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's pretty great.
So hey, if you're listening, pro tip, go talk to your VP of sales and ask him if you can take him to lunch and say, I'll pay. See what, right?
Yeah.
But well, dude, since you've started, there's good times, there's hard times. What has been a big key for you to be able to like overcome any types of opposition that maybe you faced in a role, or just sometimes you get bogged down in life and just different elements? But what's been a key for Austin that's just been able to help you kind of continue to crush it in really a lot of different areas?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is like remembering why I do it, why I'm even there. Why do I wake up every morning, go to work, then go to school, do all these things? Why do I do all this stuff? Right. And I think, personal reasons aside, like the things that keep me going are like, I know that what Athellis does is helping people. Right. And so if some people can't see that, that's fine. But there's always going to be somebody out there on my mission. I think the biggest thing is on my mission. My mission president, he would always say, like, what are you willing to do for the 1%? Right. What are you willing to do? Like 99% grind for the 1% find is what he'd always say. That was his phrase, 99% grind for the 1% find. And he'd always talk about like, how good does it feel when you have that 1% find, right? And what are you willing to do? What are you willing to go through in order to get that every time, right? And so I think on the days where, it's slow, people aren't picking up, people will shut you down, they're not interested, I think about that. I think about, all right, what is that 1% and how am I going to get to that? And so I think that's the biggest thing that keeps me going is one, remembering why I'm doing this, and two, remembering that I have to go through that 99% to find that 1% of success.
Yeah, that might be the quote of this episode right there. Write that down, everybody. 99% grind for the 1% find.
Mm-hmm.
What a cool principle, just not just in sales, but just in life.
Yeah.
I think a lot of really good things take time. We talk about rapid growth in a tech company, and there's these really cool aspects of it, but a lot of other things take a lot of time to develop and whatnot. And if you can keep that mentality of I got to get through this 99%, I got to keep going to be able to get what I want most, that's a really good life principle right there. I love that.
Yeah.
But with that said, transition into tech, you actually didn't even have any type of sales background previously.
Nope.
That's cool that you're already working at a tech company. You're still so young and up and coming, no tech experience. What were some of the things that helped you, make that transition? Maybe something from the course, I know you came through the dojo, but then even anything outside of that that's even been beneficial for you.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, whenever I was interviewing with Athelis, it came up in every interview. Sales Dojo did. And so I think the different tools that I learned with, coming up with different pitches, being comfortable, building rapport. I think, like I said, I didn't know what tech sales was 6 months ago. But having gone through the dojo course, I think the biggest thing was that it taught me to have confidence in what I'm doing, as well as to kind of bet on myself a little bit, right? And so I think going into it, having a little bit, although I didn't have any sales experience, I felt like Sales Dojo was that experience that got me through the door. And so learning to okay, I can actually do this, right? Having that mindset after going through dojo, thinking okay, I've learned different tools, different skill sets. Now I just got to go apply it. But I think learning to build confidence in myself and to bet on myself is what I guess helped me through that transition of getting through the door and through the wall of tech sales.
Dude, I love hearing that it comes up in interviews, because when people when a VP or head of sales or SDR manager hear that you come through this SDR course, they're every time, what did you learn? What is it?
Yeah.
Why did you do that? It's something that's so unique. And so when we're talking with companies or individuals, I tell them we don't work with normal people. A normal person doesn't proactively seek out a course to better themselves and to push themselves. And so, I love that you've taken some things out of the course, but at the end of the day, I think it shows companies that I want this. I'm willing to go above and beyond in order to reach what my goals are. And dude, those are the people I want on my team. And so I think it's awesome that they kind of get excited about what we've been doing.
Yeah, every time it was so what is this? I was oh yeah, I did Sales Dojo, and I got to talk to them, and they were wow, that's actually really cool, right? Nobody else does that. Or sometimes they'll be oh yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is, type of thing. So it was always cool. I felt it kind of gave me a leg up, having not had any sales experience. At least I did that, and I will say, coming in, I feel it put me a step ahead. Almost coming into it, even though I didn't have any sales experience. I still have, I took notes throughout the course, and it's on my desk at work. It's just on my notebook. So different things to remember, and all the things I've learned. So it's awesome. Yeah.
Dude, I love hearing that. One, you have some key takeaways, but above and beyond anything that we can do with the course, because we're limited to our 4 weeks, is your continuous progression. there is so much learning that comes through just being in a tech company, being in the role,
Yeah.
taking your at-bats and your reps. What have been some of the things that you've learned even after coming through the course, like within your first couple months there?
You kind of said it, like with just reps, right? Just get as many as you can. And something I loved about the dojo course is when we were going through like building a pitch, it was all right, let's do role plays. The entire time was just role play after role play. And so I think that the biggest thing on it continuing that is like, hey, like the only way you're going to get better is by doing it. Right. And so, I mean, the first couple weeks it was, I have no idea what I'm doing. But as I kept going, I, got different objections or, listened to different calls from different people, sat in on different demos. And so like different, like just as many at bats as I could get. Now, I mean, still don't have all the answers, right? But I feel a lot more comfortable because it wasn't I'm afraid to make this call, so I'm not going to. It's I'm going to get through this call so that it adds, more fuel to my next call. When that same objection comes up, I know exactly what to say. And it's cool. It's cool to see one time an objection comes up and you're not able to get past it, then the next time comes up, you're able to move right through it and get a set, and it feels good. You're like, whoa, I just learned. It's awesome. So,
Man, yeah, I think there's no better teacher than just experience.
Yeah.
Like one, I think even the experience of others. Like I love that you were listening to call recordings from other reps, but also just your own experience, your own at bats, making mistakes. Hearing you say, "Oh, I didn't get through that objection last time, but now I just did, and I was able to handle it in a better way." That is progression at its finest. And I think as you compound that day after day, month after month, year after year, that's when you start to just really see yourself start to change and become an even better version of who you are. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But with that said, man, I'd love to hear any advice that you'd give to somebody else. So if someone's kind of thinking of, hey, maybe I might do tech sales, like I don't have any sales experience, or maybe I do have sales experience, but I just don't know what I want to do. What advice would you give someone kind of looking back at your own path now?
Yeah. I mean, I said it before, but like the phrase, why not me? Right. Bet on yourself. Like the biggest thing is, I think the biggest hesitation that I had was like, oh, like all the what ifs. Like, what if I don't succeed? What if I don't do this? What if I flop? Right. But, you have to have a bet on yourself mindset and a why not me mindset. I think that was what, pushed me over to like get into it. It was like, oh, I can do this, because if I can't do it, then like, why not? Why couldn't I do it? Right. So I think my advice for anybody is just to take that leap of faith, bet on yourself, have the why not me mindset, and just go for it.
Dude, I could not agree more. I think that is such a good mentality. And honestly, something my dad has taught me. My dad's been really beneficial in helping me develop this, and I'm still working on it. But he talks about how there's no progression without any action. Like when you're stagnant, nothing really happens, and a lot of fear can start to creep in. But I think when we're able to act, and even if don't have perfect clarity on everything, I think action begins to bring that experience into our life, which brings perspective and ultimately helps us figure things out. But if you're not willing to act or bet on yourself, you're going to be stagnant in a lot of things that you want to do. So I think what you've done is amazing. And I think if you carry that, then who knows what's going to happen.
Right? Yeah. I think it applies, not just in sales, but any career you want to go into, you have to bet on yourself, right? Nobody's just going to like give you the job. Nobody's just going to give you the spot on the team. Nobody's going to just offer you whatever it is, right? You have to go and get it yourself. And so it's the same with tech sales, same with whatever you do. You got to bet on yourself and have the why not me. Why not?
Why not, dude? Well, Aust, I think you're a rock star, man. I think you're at a good company. You are pushing yourself in multiple areas. Hopefully not too much.
Yeah, right.
But then also just what you've been learning, your approach to it, that's so impressive. And if you just continue that, honestly, this is just the beginning of whatever is going to come for you. So you're going to do some big things. I appreciate you taking some time, to chat it up and maybe get back to some cow comb work after this. But
right. Got another assignment due by midnight. So on the grind always.
Dude, tech sales rock star, crushing it at school. Like, I know you go through hard times. We all have our ups and downs, but dude, you're doing awesome.
Thank you.
You're a good example to all of us. So thanks for taking the time, dude.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.